Welcome, Pip Nation, to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. We are so excited for episode 4 today. This is your host, Matthew Camara, and I'm joined by our fellow hosts here. We got Deshaun Barros. Why don't you say something?
What's up, everybody? It's Deshaun here. What's going on?
And we also have Evaldo Barros.
Evaldo Barros. How you doing, everybody?
So again, we're so excited. We thank you for the shares and likes and the comments and the feedback for all that you've been given for the show, and we're so excited moving forward. We got a great topic for you this morning. We are going to be talking about the war on the conservative voice, and it's going to touch upon a couple different things, whether it be not just politics, but also religion as well. I have a couple examples here that we can go through, and then we'll also talk about our personal experiences, and we'd love to hear your experience too. You know, I got a comment from somebody on Facebook not too long ago where she was saying that, especially as a female, that she felt that in today's society that it's hard for her to express her opinions and be a conservative, and that it was actually dangerous. And that's pretty sad that we live in the freest country in the world, and just because you share an opinion that is different, that is conservative or religious, that you would be afraid to share those opinions. And we know that that's true, right? Because the president wouldn't be the current president if we didn't have that silent majority. So we're just going to talk about some of those things today, about why people are scared.
Yeah.
Why is it that you can't voice your opinion? Why is it that we have to have a silent majority?
Well, you know what, Matt? What I was gonna say was, it's like I go to college. You know what I mean? I go to a very secular liberal school, whose the liberal agenda has just permeated the entire education system from the elementary school level all the way up until higher education, college, and beyond. So, I mean, going to a secular school, going to a liberal college, the liberal agenda is evident in every single thing that they talk about, even in sciences. You know what I mean? And that's because of some of the laws and some of the court cases that have gone on throughout history here in the United States. And one of the things that I find so prevalent when I go to school is that the conservative voice is almost like a sword. Like, it's like not a sword, but like it stings.
Right.
It stings.
It's frowned upon.
It stings because when you're actually talking with some kind of substance and some kind of logic that actually makes sense, it's almost as if you're the mean guy, that you're mean. Because I remember one time I went to this meeting. I guess this fraternity was throwing a meeting, and one of my friends who's in a fraternity, cool kid, and one of the things that they were talking about was toxic masculinity. One of the ideas of being a Neanderthal man, and the things we had talked about previous episode, and just me having a conservative values. You know what I mean? Coming from a very Christian background. And my views on a man are very different than that of the left. The leftist views on a man are fairly, a man should just be a pushover in many cases, shouldn't really worry about trying to actually be a leader in his home or anything like that, and rather he should focus on just trying to be equal with his wife in many aspects.
Right.
So my point really being is that once I voice my opinion on how I feel a man is, I was attacked by over 75 people in one auditorium. It was like, you cannot talk conservatively. You can't have a conservative opinion
at that point
because it hurts too much.
You're a sexist, right? Because you're expressing the idea that a man should be the leader in the home or lead the family. And what liberals do is they twist that and they make it seem like you're saying that the woman is beneath you, that the wife is beneath you, that she has no say, that she can't do anything, that she can't make decisions. When in fact, when we talk about being a man and a leader in a home, it's including the wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the man, you're the provider, you're the one that makes sure that you're being spiritual in the home and praying and making sure that the family unit is well taken care of. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have the highest paycheck, but be a man that works and take care of his family.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that I see in going to college is that you have so many people, even professors, who are they're not liberal. I can understand you being liberal. You know what I mean? I can understand you have a libertarian mindset. You might not agree with some of the conservative things. Okay, cool. Maybe we can have a conversation. But unfortunately, it's almost like it's extreme left. Like, it's like you can't even have a conversation with these people without them personally attacking your character because they feel like your political views are so narrow-minded or so you it's just ridiculous to me. I just don't feel like it's actually the America or the college the college standard of politics
Right.
is just extreme left. There's
Well,
no
the problem. Well, there's a couple of problems. You mentioned that the professors seem liberal or may not be liberal, but there was a study that came out not too long ago. I had mentioned it before. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was pretty staggering. It was something like if I was to pull out a number out of every 100 professors, only 10 of those 100 professors would be conservative.
Oh yeah, it's bad, man.
That's pretty sad, especially when the point of a college is supposed to foster in ideas. It's supposed to foster debate. It's supposed to foster just different opinions coming together and trying to talk things out. And we've completely eliminated that from colleges.
Oh man.
That's why you see conservative voices getting banned. People like Ben Shapiro, who constantly is getting banned. Right, Mike Pence, when he goes and does a commencement speech, the media is so proud to show people walking out of his speeches, and they don't want him there. But you only ever see that from the conservatives speakers. When it comes to liberal speakers, you don't see that same boycotting happening. You don't see that same thing. It's like conservatives are okay with the other side having a voice. But when it comes to conservatives having a voice, it seems the liberals have
no room for that.
There's a gentleman, I forget his name.
It's crazy, man.
Maybe you guys know. He's actually a gay gentleman. He's a gay conservative.
Yeah.
Pretty popular. He's a young guy. Maybe we can put in some text or something with his name. His name, Milo or something. He's a pretty popular guy out there.
We'll have to put it in a link or something.
Yeah.
Milo
maybe-
Paparopoulos or something like that.
Yeah, it's
He's
something
a gay
like that.
conservative.
He's a
Is
gay
he a popular
conservative.
one? Like, is he popular?
very
He's very
popular.
popular.
Very popular?
And he also gets banned too by his own kind. So,
Really?
and it's really because
Because he's outside the box, bro.
Right, because he has conservative
Yeah, man.
viewpoints. But Deshaun, tell us, have you ever at one point felt uncomfortable to speak your,
Oh
your
yeah,
mind
man,
being a
all the
conservative in
time,
college?
dude, all the time. I mean, I remember one of my friends who I gravitated to. His name is, I won't divulge his name, but I'll say one of my friends I met at school, super cool. We've hung out a few times. He actually took a women and gender studies at the university there, and one of the things the professor first said during the first day of class, as a orientation thing, he said, "This class is not a discussion. This class, we're not going to be talking about anything. If you have anything to say that's contrary to this, we're not having a discussion here. This is real. This is a real matter. Talking about women's rights, transgenders, gays, homosexuals, anything as far as that was pretty much sexual liberation and women gender studies are all pushed together in one class. And one of the things that he felt that he couldn't say anything. I mean, there was no discussion on the topic. It was just that this is what it is.
Right.
And there was no actual room for debate. And that's really unfortunate because on a college campus where higher education, higher learning is supposed to be occurring, that we can't even have discussions about some of the very touchy topics that people tell us all about.
If there's no debate, if there's no room for discussion,
There's no
then
learning,
at
man.
at that point, it's just an indoctrination.
Oh
center,
yeah,
right?
man.
So
I mean, yeah.
it's either you drop out of the class
And he did drop out of the class,
or
actually.
you conform to what.
This has
their views
become
are.
like a religion for them. Yeah.
Oh man, it's sad, dude.
like-
And it's and as a conservative, as a young conservative going, it's very draining because it's like you can't have a conversation with some of these young people because they've been so brainwashed to think one way. And I always tell them, you only told the story. You only told one side of the story all day long, 365 days a year. And when you go to school, you get told it again. So, I mean, the problem that I see with it is the fact that there's no conversation happening, thus making the young college kids who go to school very ignorant to the conservative voice, and that they just look at the conservative voice as they're just attacking us, or they're just mean people. Republicans are just mean people. They're racist, they're sexist, they're homophobes. And it's like their level of education on political policies, political agendas are just like second to none, dude.
The other side effect of that is because there's no actual debate, a lot of them can't actually debate you. That's why they resort to violence.
in attacking your character.
That's why they resort to calling you names.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the amount of times that before Trump was elected and I showed my support for Trump, how many times I was called a racist. by people who don't even know me, a sexist, a homophobe,
Yeah, man.
all sorts of things that I have never been called before. All of a sudden, I became those things just because I was voiced my support for President Trump. You know, it even got to the point where even at my workplace,
Oh, that's sad, man.
it was like every opportunity that people could get, they would, you know, whether it be company meetings, you know, we'd have some of, not all of them, some of the higher ups, they would use that opportunity to attack
To attack you?
conservative viewpoints.
Oh, that's
wouldn't-
horrible, dude.
They wouldn't say it to me directly, but they would say it as a joke, you know, or they would purposely say bad things about President Trump. And it got to a point where I had to, you know, they had this confidentiality thing where you could make a complaint or give feedback. And I said, listen, as a conservative Christian, I feel like I'm under attack, and I feel like my beliefs are under attack. And it actually did change some things since then. I guess it did go to HR, and since then, none of the higher ups have ever said anything
Oh,
about
praise God, man.
conservatives
That's amazing.
or even about President Trump.
Yeah, because one of the things I see about the left, I don't know, Ivaldo talks about this all the time, so Ivaldo could probably fill us in on this. I mean, the race card and the diversity and the inclusion stuff, about all this crap that they love to talk about. One of the biggest things is I remember taking a community and scholarship class, engagement, and it was all about research and it was all about diversity. And one of the biggest things that I learned about being in that class is that the left loves to talk about diversity and how we need inclusion. But once I open my mouth, there is no inclusion. There is no diversity. You're a bigot. You're a hater.
Right.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely hypocritical. So it's like, come on, guys. Like,
When I hear diversity, equality, racist, to me, all that is are Marxist techniques. That's all it is. Starting with Martin Luther King Jr. I know a lot of people are going to be upset, but I don't care. His whole movement ended up being Marxist in nature. And actually, whether you believe the JFK files or not, there are things written in there that Martin Luther King is pretty much he's admitting to being a Marxist or a communist. So when I hear words like equality, racism, to me those are Marxist tactics, and it will finally result in this whole diversity thing will result in pedophilia. That's what it's going to result in. I guarantee you.
Oh,
it started with
certainly.
race. Now it's in gender equality, transgender, and all that stuff. The next thing will be pedophilia, because all these illegal aliens that we're allowing here coming from different countries, they don't have the same culture as we do. And one of the differences in some of those cultures are the way men and women interact. You have a lot of older men that are into younger girls. I know it for a fact because in my own country, back in the Cape Verde Islands, you'd have 50-year-old dudes with like 15-year-old girls. You bring that over here, it's not acceptable. But if you change the culture with Marxist tactics, it will be comfortable. Just like transgender is now becoming comfortable and normalized.
man, it's crazy.
That's the next
They
thing. So
got
when I hear
drag
those
queen
words, that's
story time,
exactly
man.
what I hear. It's Marxist tactics. That's all it is.
drag queen story time, dude.
It has nothing to do with race,
Crazy.
police shooting.
Diversity to me, you know, if you just look at the definition of what it's trying to accomplish, there are good merits there, right? But sometimes the road to hell is paved with good intentions, you know? So unfortunately, what maybe somebody back in the day thought was going to be a good idea, people have perverted it, right?
Certainly, yeah.
Now, diversity would be fine if the conservative voice was was part of it. But like Deshaun said, as soon as you voice your opinion that you're a conservative, then all of a sudden diversity gets thrown out the window. As soon as you throw the fact that you're a Christian, all of a sudden that gets thrown out the window. I'll give you an example, okay? Diversity supposedly protects religion. However, if you go through company trainings, if you go through just what the media talks about diversity, what religion do they always talk about? They talk about the
Muslims.
religion. They talk about how they have to accommodate them. It's interesting that they can accommodate a Muslim to pray 5 times a day, but there's a lot of places out there that won't accommodate a Christian to not work on a Sunday. But yet they're supposed to be equal.
I have an
Yeah.
answer for that after you're done with yours. I'll tell you why that is.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I got to look something up real quick.
But they claim that it's supposed to be equal. So I'm okay with diversity to a point. Okay, yeah, let's treat everybody with respect. Everybody has the same shot. Where I disagree with diversity is when you have to purposely include people who may not fit
Yeah,
the job.
I see what you mean.
know?
Yeah.
If I'm a business owner, I'm gonna hire the best person for the job, whether you're black, white, whether you're Chinese, whether you're African American, whether you're Jewish. I don't care.
Yeah.
My goal is to hire the best person for the job.
Yeah, the best qualified.
Now, if the best person for the job happens to be all males, then so be it. If the best person for the job happens to be all females, then so be it. But my opinion on diversity is that it shouldn't. I shouldn't be hiring people just so I'm going to get an extra
Yeah.
kickback or things like that.
And that's what's going on, man. Just like you said, it's like people are not getting hired because of their qualifications, but because they need to meet some kind of racial quota. And that's because of diversity. That's because of some of the things that the left has instituted with this.
But at the same time, I understand the good intention, right? Because yeah, there was a time where there was probably a major issue with that.
Yeah.
Evaldo, you still needed more time, or you got what you?
No, I wanted to touch base on what you said, that Christians have no rights, right? And I said that the left are acting like this is a religion for them. And I have nothing wrong with religion because our country was founded on religion. It was founded on biblical principles, the God of the Bible, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
But the reason why the Christians are now getting pulled out or not having as many rights as other religions like Muslims is because we're in a stage now in our society where it's a tear down and build back up sort of mode. So if you're noticing, they're tearing down the statues. They think that the Constitution was racist, written by slave owners, white patriarchal men, things of that nature. And to them, all of that, the left, is evil. To them, all of that is evil. Those men were racist. The Constitution is racist. Those statues, they're racist. So they want to tear that down with like religious moral indignation to build back up to what they see fit. And I lost my train of thought here. But if you look at, like you mentioned, college campuses with liberal professors, look at Bill Ayre. Bill Ayre was part of the Weather Underground camp, and he blew up the Pentagon during the whole what war was it? Was it Vietnam War? He didn't agree with the war, so he was involved in a group called the Weather Underground Men, or whatever it was, and they blew up the Pentagon. And now this dude, after blowing up the Pentagon, is teaching in a liberal school. And he's up there. You'll see him debating with conservative thinkers like Dinesh D'Souza. And he actually is one of the people that framed the thinking of Barack Obama, our former president, along with many other radical left-wing Marxist-type thinkers like Jeremiah Wright, his pastor, his preacher. So that's what we're dealing with in this mode. That's why these kids are turning out this way. And to them, they can't do anything but just like react with like anger and whatever, because to them, it's like moral indignation. It's a religion for them. That's what they're being taught in these schools. So you can't really have a sound debate with them because to them, that's exactly what it is.
No, you can't. And I've experienced this because one of the reasons why I wanted to do a podcast myself, one of the biggest reasons why this podcast has started is not only because in myself, I was always getting told the liberal side of the story. In many cases, it was almost like I felt alone, you know what I mean, as far as being a conservative young black man on campus, because they love to identify me as a young black man, which, I mean, sure, if you want to do that, but
You ain't black, you're Cape Verdean.
At this point in my political education, I should say, I've realized that I'm an individual just like anybody else, and that my life, my decisions, my choices will definitely affect me. And I've realized that ultimately, when the day's over and the sun sets and the music's done, faded, I got to look at myself in the mirror and realize, did I live not only for God, but for my own values? Did I live for myself today? Did I give in to peer pressure? Did I give in to the societal norms of today? No, and I don't want to put that up there, you know.
And you mentioned Nazi Germany and Muslims. Did you? No, you didn't. You said Muslims. Muslim religion.
Yep.
I just read something on Twitter not too long. I forget how many thousands of Muslims there were that fought with Nazi Germany, that fought with Hitler to destroy the Jews.
So there was Muslims?
There were Muslims. I saw it on Twitter. I'm trying to find it online. I can't find it. But there were so many thousands of Muslims that joined Hitler in his fight against the Jewish people during the whole Holocaust thing. And what did you? Who are the Jewish people? The Jewish people are the foundational people. Their religion is foundational to Christianity. So there's a war, depending on how you believe, your belief system is, between these two types of religious systems, and that's what's playing out right now in our society.
Yeah.
If you look deep into it.
I had seen something previously. I'm gonna look it up. Just about the fact that the American people look to politicians to solve issues in their communities and in their homes,
Which is wrong.
and which is horrible. And it's like, why are we looking for people who don't even know who we are, don't even know our names, to try to fix our issues and our problems? When really, just like anybody back in the day, they knew that they had to go out and fix their own issues and live with their own
I
problems
think
and things like that.
there's a lot of reasons for that. One is obviously the education system, indoctrinating
Yep.
people to not have their own opinions or question things, to just kind of go with the flow. The other thing is the destruction of the family unit.
Yep.
You know, once you start taking fathers out of the home and destroying what a family should be.
And then destroy the man, bring the man down, right?
The big dependence on government, I think that's the biggest thing, is people out there don't know what to do. You know, if they don't have the government sending them a check, they don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Which is an opposite trend from what the founders did, right? The founders wanted to get away from the King of England and have checks and balances in our system and have people be individuals.
Yes.
And run their own lives and have the government as least involved as possible.
Right. Yeah. Our
amazing.
government was originally founded on being a small government, as little intrusion as possible. And I understand that as you know, the population grows and technology grows, there has to be safeguards there. But
Wow.
we've gotten to a point where we expect the government to be a part of every aspect of our lives, a part of every solution. When there's a problem and you read about it online, one of the most things was, why isn't government doing more? Why isn't government funding this? Why isn't government doing that? And in reality, that's not the role of government. The role of government isn't really to provide you for housing. The role of government is to set up a nation that is protected so that you have the ability to go out and work and that you have the ability to go out and succeed. The government helps with that, but it's not their responsibility to give you that success.
Yeah. And charitable causes is not the government's responsibility.
Correct.
And Deshaun, you talked about taxes and it being so high last week, right? That people can't even provide for their own selves. Well, that's the whole thing. It's so high that people can't even do anything charitable anymore because
I think I lose a little over $400 every paycheck.
Right.
And just taxes and whatever else that I'm paying for.
And that's because we live in Massachusetts.
Right, Massachusetts. And because the government is involved in charitable cases, right, they always sneak their hand in the cookie jar. That's what they do. It never goes to the people that really need it. That's why charitable causes should always be led by people, churches, nonprofit organizations.
And actually, that's how it used to be before the Great Depression. Almost all charitable
Yes.
donations and things like that was actually done by churches and people going to churches. That was the number one source of those bread lines that you read about. A lot of that was not government funded. A lot of that was soup kitchens funded by the churches and just people helping out other people. It wasn't the responsibility of the government. And people like to look at that and say, oh, well, it's government. It was the reason why we got out of the Great Depression. And that's just a flat out lie.
Yeah.
The government poured tons and tons of money into the economy and nothing happened. The reason why we got out of the Great Depression was World War II. And that's the sole reason why we got out of the Great Depression was the world economy collapsed. The United States was able to take advantage of that. And that's why we were able to be successful and pull ourselves out of that. Had nothing to do with government handouts.
Speaking of charity, you know what I mean? One of the things that we're doing here in our local church is we have an SFC fundraiser, a She's for Christ fundraiser that funds missionaries, vehicles, and things like that. And even if you're not interested in missionaries, it funds things like Tupelo Children's Mansion, Lighthouse Ranch for Boys. And one of the things I'm so passionate about, because I had been the district Real McCoy for 2 years running, I had raised over $1,000 each year. And one of the things that this SFC, I want to plug that actually, so we'll make sure we keep this in there, Evo, is that this is a charitable foundation that's organized by the UPCI, the United Pentecostal Church International. This podcast is not affiliated with that, but I just want to plug that because it's charity. It's people giving. This charitable fund funds so many different things other than just should I say, a religious motive to get people to convert to Christianity. But it's a charitable fund that funds things like adoption homes that help people who might consider getting an abortion, because I know the abortion topic in the United States is a huge hot topic right now. It funds things like that in order for young mothers to give their babies to an adoption center or an orphanage so that they can give a life to somebody that they may not even have wanted. So I think when we talk about charity and we talk about the government getting involved, if the government was involved in these kinds of acts and these kind of charitable organizations, people would be less inclined to give because there could be other motives involved in certain things of that nature. But one thing I can assure you is that when we're talking about charity and we're talking about giving, when you tax the American people at such a high rate and they can barely afford to pay their bills, they can barely keep the lights on in their house because they're paying for somebody else to sit down and not do anything, and you expect people to want to work, it's baffling to me. Just baffling, dude.
For those of you that don't know, like Deshaun had mentioned, with that charity giving, SFC, again, it does fund foreign missions, helps them with vehicles and travel expenses and being able to do the work of God in foreign nations outside of the United States. But if you're not into that, it also does go to Tupelo Children's Mansion, which is an adoption home run by the UPCI. The other one is a teens ranch for troubled boys. So that's also a good cause. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you're a listener that's not religious or in truth and things like that, you can still give to a cause like this and know that it's going to go help people that need it. But there's two more segments that I wanted to topics that I wanted to talk about, and then we're going to push it off to Valdo. He's got a great topic.
What you got for us
to talk about? But the other thing is I want to talk about Twitter and social media, and I'm kind of conflicted on this, and we'll get your guys' opinions. So I'll explain why I'm conflicted. So if you've been following, again, the war on the conservative voice, you'll know that places like Twitter and Facebook have come down hard on conservative voices. Conservative voices are being banned for pretty stupid reasons. I've read some of the, James Woods is one of the more popular ones that got banned. There's a couple other, there's a female that's pretty popular that got banned as well. I read their tweets. It wasn't really anything that warranted a ban. You may not agree with it. I may not agree with it, but it's didn't warrant a ban in my eyes. And you're seeing this on Twitter, Facebook, and other forms of social media. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm conflicted. So the reason why I'm conflicted is the reasoning of why they got banned. So Twitter and Facebook put out statements saying that the reason why these people are getting banned is because they're saying things that are harmful, that are hateful, or they're saying things that could cause violence, okay, or incite violence. And what makes me conflicted on that is you have other liberal voices on there that are doing far worse. There's a man by the name of Louis Farrakhan.
Louis Farrakhan.
Who is thank you. Who is an absolute racist and hates white men, and actually just tweeted out not too long ago about the ending of white men.
No way, really?
But he's still allowed to
Evo,
be,
we got to put a picture of that tweet up there.
I know him very well. He's also an anti-Semite. He's part of the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
He's a leader there.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matt.
He's allowed to be on Twitter and do those things. And then you have places like Facebook who allow terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah to continue to do their work, as well as places like ISIS. Why are they still on social media able to do these things, but yet you're targeting individual conservative voices? That's where the problem is.
Yeah.
See, my opinion is maybe quite different. See, I believe because Twitter and Facebook are public, are privately owned companies, that they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
I believe that. If they just want to allow liberals on their services, I'm okay with that. But don't sit there and lie and say that the reason why you're banning conservatives is because they're being hateful or inciting violence, but yet you're allowing liberals to do the same exact thing.
Oh man,
That's where I'm conflicted. If you want to ban all conservatives, go for it. That's fine. Conservatives, you need to rise up and create your own format where your voice can actually be heard. But because they're privately held companies, I'm okay with them do it. But
Yeah.
just don't lie about it. Don't come up with bogus reasons why you're banning James Wood and then have Farrakhan or whatever his name is,
Louis
Farrakhan, on there preaching hate against white
Yeah.
men and Jewish people. What do you guys think?
Louis Farrakhan is part of the Nation of Islam, which was what Malcolm X was involved in before he left and got assassinated for leaving.
yeah,
It was started by Wallace Fard Muhammad, then the Prophet Elijah Muhammad. Louis Farrakhan is the leader of it now. And what they believe is that the white man is evil and he started all the evil, and that the original Israelites, this is what they think, the original Israelites were actually black people. And every major prophet, Adam and Eve, all of them were black, and the white man is evil. So all of this is connected with like white privilege. All this stuff interconnects. This is what Marxism does. It connects all this stuff and it links it together so they can have their society. All this victimization, all this stuff, it's all linked. It's all linked to like white supremacy, white privilege. It's all linked. Because if you buy into white privilege, then you'll most likely buy into what Louis Farrakhan is saying, which is all white men are evil. So white people are like, okay, no, we're evil then. So maybe we should just conform to whatever these politicians want because we're the problem, we're the cause of all this stuff that's going on with black people in society. So
yeah, and just like you said before, it all interconnects
It's all
the way back
interconnected.
to when we were talking about the conservative voice being squashed, because that's really what we're talking about. And I mean, going back to even the college discussion about my secular school that I go to, this all links back because really what they're trying to tie into all this is the fact that they want to spread the idea of diversity and inclusion and the fact that we are all one people when really they're not. They're trying to spread this identity politics that divides ideology. And what happens is it divides ideology by trying to squash anybody whose ideology goes against that. And they do that by masking it as we want inclusion, we want peace, we want things like that.
Yeah.
But they don't want anybody to come in and say, well, you know what, I don't actually agree with some of the things that you're talking about. And once you actually begin to look at and look deeper than just the surface level of some of these fake politicians and their fake policies of how they're going to save the world and how they're going to give everybody a paycheck, you'll realize that on the end of all of this is a downhill slope or a cliff. And that cliff really is the suffering of everybody else who wants to work hard and who actually wants to better society in any way. Because look at human ingenuity, okay? Capitalism creates such human ingenuity that this country not only, what is it, like maybe 400 years old, United States of America? Maybe 400 years, not even half a millennium.
the United States.
Yeah, the United States, yeah.
A couple hundred maybe?
It's like 400 years old.
400 years old?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first settlement
like
was 1624,
The richest nation, the most powerful
Yeah,
nation
you're talking
ever
about
made.
when people first settled
Yeah,
here.
first
Yeah.
settled here. I mean,
Not necessarily when we became the United States. Yeah.
yeah, not when we. I'm not. I want to separate that just to get my history right. I'm just talking about when people first settled here. Of course, they tried different governments, but even if you go back to like maybe, I want to say 1776 when the Constitution was formed and things
Yep.
like that, and you have different states. So it's not even. I mean, 400 years old. Honestly, it's less
Well,
than that.
we all know what they're trying to do. It's just create one opinion so that they can eventually push their one world government at some
So
point.
really what I was getting to was just it's not about inclusion. It's all about one way of thinking. And if you don't think the way they want, you're an enemy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's inclusion if you agree with them.
Yeah.
Inclusion is just a code word. The end result is like dictatorship, them
Yep.
being in power. It's really
Yep.
about them being in power. So you say, oh man, Evaldo, you're so crazy. So all these politicians, these Democrats, they're like involved in this big conspiracy theory. It sounds far-fetched, right? But I think these politicians, all they are pawns.
Yeah.
And what they've been told is this big picture that we have by the people that are really in charge or higher up, what these politicians have been told is you'll get a piece of this too. You'll get a piece of this, you'll be involved, you're promised this or that. You know, that's what that is.
I mean, at this point, nothing surprises me. You see what's happening. I remember when Trump was telling the media and telling people that he believes that he was being spied on, and people thought he was absolutely crazy. Well, the media was already pitting their tinfoil hats on him, and then look what happened. It comes out that the government actually was spying on President Trump. So at this point, nothing surprises me, especially when it comes to Democrats.
They're really pushing for impeachment too.
They're pushing for impeachment.
It's not
and
gonna happen,
You know
man.
what? It's going to do is drive him a victory in 2020.
Oh, yeah.
So-
And with Nancy Pelosi, she's really stuck in between a hard place and a rock because
because she knows she's a smarter woman than we would
Right.
probably give her credit for, and she knows that impeachment is not going
Right.
to. One, it's going to fail, and two, it's going to make the Democrats look even stupider if that's even possible.
Yeah.
And then it's going to fuel the base to rise up and
Right.
vote for Trump again.
She's like caught in between what the radical portion of her party and what the moderate portion really want, and
Yeah.
she's stuck in between these two places trying to make it all work and figure it out.
And it's tough because I don't want to group all Democrats together because you have
No.
those that I understand their position, and then you also have that governor in Louisiana who's a Democrat who just signed an abortion bill, an anti-abortion bill.
But a good portion has gone more left. Like even like a Joe Biden, he never was pro-abortion. He was actually really pro-life, and now he's moving more towards the
because
left.
he has no choice.
Right.
He knows that he cannot get the nomination for president if he's not.
But you're right. There's still
Radical.
some of those moderate Democrats, like the Kennedys, those type of Democrats that were really moderate. They,
Yeah.
they liked a lot of the good values that this country was based on.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about is just the overall sense of people being afraid to kind of speak up. And,
Yeah.
if you're a part of that silent majority, I think we're at a time where it's best for us to start speaking our voices. And we always want to do it. See, what separates a conservative from a liberal is that we're going to do it politely. We're going to do it professionally. We're not going to incite violence. We're not going to go and tip cars over and bash in store windows. We're going to do this in an orderly fashion. But I'm encouraging you to rise up. It's sad that I have to get a comment from somebody who says that they're afraid, that it's generally makes them scared to voice their opinion because they don't know how the other party is going to react. They're actually afraid that they'll be physically harmed. And we see this at rallies and things like that. You go to a Trump rally and things like that, and you have liberals that are causing destruction and punching Trump supporters, or the fact that somebody who wears a MAGA hat and goes into a grocery store or goes into a place of business and just wants to eat lunch or something, and they have to be harassed and put on social media and physically attacked. There's been so many stories of people wearing MAGA hats and being attacked. You don't see that, or it's extremely rare that you'll get that from conservative. If somebody comes in wearing into my place of business and is wearing a pro-Hillary, I'm gonna gladly take their money. I'm not gonna care. But it's so sad that we've come to a point where people are actually scared and afraid to voice their conservative, especially if they're Christian conservative,
Yeah.
those opinions.
I mean, Matt, just like you said, just to piggyback really off what you just said, I mean, I just looked up something about the conservative media, and one of the things that I've seen here is that even it's like really subtle, but even with like big companies like Google and Amazon, a lot of the things I've found is a lot of their conservative crushing or silencing modes come by subtle changes or subtle words that they do or subtle search things that happen. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Like when you look up Ben Shapiro, you look up Steven Crowder, who's another big Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, some people like that. I mean, there's always a punch that gets thrown, whether in a definition of or whether in anyway, there's always a punch that gets thrown. And I just want to say, I mean, when the liberal media gets most of the play here in America, when it's more popular to be, say, liberal, and I mean, I should separate the two because there's a leftist. I want you guys to understand. There's really somebody who's left, and then there's somebody who's a liberal. Okay, so there's
Right.
differences between them. Okay, so I want you guys to understand that. I mean, when I say liberal, really what I mean today,
We're talking about the radicals, the extreme.
we're talking about the extreme liberals, extreme radicals, and I think today we can't separate the two at this point because they're so intermeshed that people only think that when we talk about a liberal, we're talking about the left. So I want to make sure we designate that when we talk about a liberal, it's somebody who's actually you can have a conversation with. They actually agree with certain policies with you.
Right.
They can actually have a political discussion without attacking your personhood. Without attacking you personally, but they can actually have a debate with facts and statistics and about policies that they might disagree with.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's rare that you find somebody that
Yeah, no.
on the opposite side that can have that type of discussion. The other thing I wanted to mention is the fact, we joked before we started this podcast that, wow, if our companies find out that we're doing a conservative podcast, that we'll probably get fired or something. And we were just joking, but I think on the inside we kind of meant it because that's actually happened. Actually, we have seen an Australian footballer who, because he's religious and believes in Christianity, and he voiced his opinion. I believe it was I don't know if it was anti-abortion, if it was something to do with the homosexual community, but he ended up getting fired. And this wasn't just some backup footballer. This was a superstar footballer who put his religious beliefs on display, and they basically retaliated against him and fired him. So he lost everything. Hopefully, a conservative club picked him up, but that's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
That we have to be in constant fear that if we just say the wrong thing, or not have the same opinion as somebody else, that we're going to lose our jobs and lose our livelihoods.
Yeah.
And that's a sad fact in today's world.
Yeah, that's because politics has been so thwarted. I mean, you can't even talk about it anymore without people getting really upset and having disagreements.
And I can understand, like, for instance, if that footballer was saying nasty things about homosexuals, but to just simply say that you don't agree with that lifestyle and leave it at that, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Neither do I.
You still be kind and compassionate to them, and they're still a human being just like anybody else. Just like somebody who's committing adultery, it's the same thing. I know we don't always look at it in the same light, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, for anybody who might not know what adultery is, that just means like cheating on your wife. You know what I'm saying, or whoever.
But even today, that's a becoming common thing too. I read not too long ago on a website that they're promoting that couples actually have affairs and be open about it, and that supposedly that improves your marriage.
Right.
Like that's the stupidity that's being driven out there.
Come on, guys! Like this is.
Ben Shapiro always mentions that he has followers in Hollywood that are silent followers of his, because they know that if they
get
admit,
blacklisted.
they would get blacklisted. They wouldn't get work.
Yeah.
There was the actor who did Full Metal Jacket, the drill sergeant, actually, because he was an open conservative. He mentioned, he actually passed away a couple of years ago now. He mentioned that he was blacklisted and could only get minor roles.
And as we get closer to these things, now the Christians don't look so crazy when they start telling people, hey, the Bible says that one day we won't be able to buy or sell in this like one world religious type of system.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. You're losing your job. These are just precursors. You're losing your job because you don't agree with what these people are saying. So it doesn't look so far-fetched as we get closer and closer.
But on a high note, one thing is that we do live in America, and we do have a silent majority of people who do not agree with the mainstream idea of the society in which we live in. And one of the things that I had wanted to touch on was a guy named Steve Bannon. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with
he was
former
part of the Trump
chief strategist.
organization.
He was on the campaign of Trump's campaign.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he had said to his interviewer, because he likes to go on like liberal sites, he likes to go on like liberal late night talk shows and stuff like that. And he went on a few of them. I think he was on Stephen Colbert, a few other people. And one of the things that he likes is he likes to go and he likes to sit with people who disagree and who are on the left. And one thing I've noticed when he's in these interviews is that the man just talks about when he was campaigning for Trump and writing up the strategy. One of the things he realized was that the Democratic campaign, or Hillary's campaign, really was just a racial identity politics type run. Their strategy was to use the black vote or the Hispanic vote and try to get that vote to overthrow the Trump campaign. And one of the things that he had told Trump was run on this populist idea. I'm sure Matt probably touched on this a few episodes back, of running on the idea of economics, of bringing America back, making America great again, economic power, military power. And the president is certainly doing that. So, I mean, you can give a hand clap to the silent majority in which elected this president, because he's getting things done.
Yeah,
And he's doing things that we would have never seen under the Obama administration or the Hillary Clinton administration. So one thing that we can take as a positive with all of this is that the president is getting things done and he's making America great again.
Yep. And when America prospers, you prosper. So I don't see why anybody would be against that. But we're going to move on to our final segment before we close. So we're going to kick it off to Valdo.
Thanks, Matt. So, guys, this segment is another one of my cool little segments. Real quick, it's called Things That Make You Go, And it's led by Hillary Clinton, the failed Democratic presidential runner back in 2016.
2 times or 3 times?
I think it might have been twice, man.
Is she going to run again, you think?
Nah, she can't do that.
I don't think she
I
will.
don't think so, man.
So, Miss Clinton, the reason why she's part of the things that make you go, is she was recently, she was a guest for a keynote speech at the Cybersecurity Summit.
Wow.
Yes, really. And she was a keynote speaker there. And the article that I'm looking at says former Secretary of State and failed presidential candidate Hillary Clinton will deliver a guest speech at an upcoming cybersecurity conference. Yes, the same Hillary Clinton who kept confidential emails on an unsecured server. Clinton will deliver a keynote speech at the Cybersecurity Summit in October, organized by the security firm FireEye. After her speech, Clinton will take part in a Q&A discussion with FireEye CEO Kevin Mandia on the geopolitical landscape and its implications for global cybersecurity today. So, to me, that was our things that make you go, Hillary giving a speech at a cybersecurity summit. Interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That maybe they just want to get what you don't want to happen.
Right.
So, I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a trolling thing, or they're just gonna ask her how she deleted all those emails. Which is funny because they actually she apparently couldn't even do that good enough, because they're still finding new emails and they're still digging it. 2 years later, and the whole Russia thing is actually done. And look at that, Hillary emails are still popping up.
And there's like a highlight in this article that involves Twitter, and it goes, still salty about losing. Twitter users stunned by Hillary calling for China to hack Trump. So she's doing sort of the reverse of what Trump did with her involving Russia when Trump was running. She called for China to hack Trump, and I guess Twitter was appalled by this. They were stunned.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, boy.
She just won't go away.
She won't go away, man. She
But-
won't go away.
you would think with all the crimes coming out that she would just go away, retire, and just spend the millions of dollars that she, we'll say, questionably acquired, and just go away. I mean, if I was her, I would just go away. I'd probably just move to a different country and just go
but
away.
They have no shame. Like the Democrats just like shamelessly do stuff. Like she's shamelessly going out doing a cybersecurity.
Well, they're probably
speech,
paying her big
right?
bucks. Does it say how much she's making for that speech?
I don't know, but that you're right. The Democrats always do this. Like they shamelessly do stuff. Like they knew that they were in front of they're the ones that started slavery and Jim Crow, and they never they just come out and make pretend like they're the ones that are saving people from the thing that they started. Or when Hillary was I think she was on the Breakfast Club show, and she showed up around a bunch of black people with hot sauce in her purse, and she goes, "Yeah, I always carry hot sauce," And then they ask her, "Are you doing this just because we're black?" She's like, "Yeah, is it working?"
Oh, what about the time that she said black people? Don't they all look the same?
Yeah. She goes, "Black people, don't they all look?" She was talking about who was she talking about?
I can't remember. That was a while ago now. But
It was somebody black. She's like, "Yeah, they all look alike, right?"
Yeah.
And they laughed.
but,
This is what they do.
That is what they do.
Race pimps, man. Race pimps.
Raise pimps.
That's what they're like. You know what I mean? And if you don't like that, I mean, just look at what they run on. Look at their platform. Look at their campaigning. I mean, if you move the black vote, I think Candace Owens had said if the black vote moved just 5%, there'd be no Democratic president getting into office.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know what? I think a lot of black people are waking up and what does
They
she
are
call it?
waking
What's
up.
it called? Blexit?
Blexit. Yeah, look that up on YouTube. It's actually pretty good.
Brexit.
Blexit. Yeah,
But I think Trump's got it 2020.
I think so.
All right, everybody.
Hey guys, can you please get our subscription up on our YouTube channel up? We'd like to get to, let's say, 100 for starters,
Yeah,
and then
100
work
sounds
from
good.
there.
Yeah.
So go on our YouTube channel, The Politically Incorrect Podcast, and just subscribe to our channel, please.
Yeah, that really does help us
It
out.
does help.
We appreciate all the views, but a like and subscribe, and also hit that bell notification so that you can get updates every time we upload a video. And we hope you have a great week, and we'll see you guys next Monday.
And share the show to everybody you know, your brother, your sister, your mother, everybody.
Your cousin, your grandmother, everybody. Tell everyone.
And also, if you have any stories that you would like to share with us, and maybe we'll bring it up in our next
Yep.
episode about times that maybe you had to speak up your conservative values, or times that you felt like you really couldn't, shoot us an email. What's the email about, Deshaun?
The email is thepoliticallyincorrectpod@gmail.com, and that's all lowercase letters. Thepoliticallyincorrectpod@gmail.com. And I want to take the time to plug our Facebook page, The Politically Incorrect Podcast, on Facebook and Instagram as well. The Politically Incorrect Pod. Links are in my bio on Instagram. If you just go to Deshaun Barrows, and that's spelled DAISHAWN and BARROS. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll
And,
see you next week. Fifth
We will see
Nation
you
out.
next week, right?
Next
Ready?
week.